Hey everybody, thank you for joining me on my live stream. Today we will be working on page 25 of the fantasy coloring book. I have put together this little ad thing for when the book does come out. I plan to make it available on my Etsy store, uh, possibly both as a print and a digital version, depending on how big the file actually is when I'm done with it. Uh, then today we're going to be finishing off the Gnome Barbarian that we started in the last session. And the only other thing I've got going on is this week's been pretty crazy at work, and yesterday I ended up working something like 13 hours, so I did not stream last night. But I figured since I'd finished my club meeting this morning and had some time, I would go ahead and jump in here and do an unscheduled stream. So let me switch over to the stream and we will start drawing. Here we go. So we are working on page 25, and so far we've laid in the Goblin Wizard in the background right over here. We have the Human Wizard, and we're overlapping him right now with the Gnome Barbarian. We're going to jump right down in here. Oop, I keep forgetting to make sure I'm on the right window. There we go. Jumping back into our Gnome Barbarian. We've got him laid out. He is 4 heads tall as far as the head measurement for height. And so I'm trying to kind of keep everybody's heads relatively the same size, except for changes in perspective, who's or foreshortening, who's closer and who's further away. And I need to also bring up my Gnome Barbarian uh, reference. So let me open out of my character reference my Gnome Barbarian. And we're going to go with a side-by-side view. There we go. So now you can see what the character is meant to look like as well as what we're drawing. And we're going to go ahead and turn that wizard off for now. I've got everything on different layers so I can adjust and manipulate as I need to while we go through this pencil sketch stage. And later on, I will be coming back and doing the final ink stage, which is a lot less sketchy and nice and smooth for coloring. All right, so last week, or yeah, it was, well, no, it was still this week. But in the last session, oh, I'm in orange. That's not going to work. Hold on. Technical difficulties. All right, so now we're using black again. So I'm sketching back this arm. The one arm here is holding the sword at the lower end. The other hand is up here holding the sword at the higher end, right below the crosspiece. So we'll go ahead and we'll start by laying in the sword, which has, let's see, I've got this line here to help me place it. And we want to make sure that the hilt of the sword comes out right about like so. And of course, oh, you know what? The color I'm drawing with isn't even actually black. Let me fix my colors real quick. Do it right. There we go. So that was more of a blue-gray. Not that it makes much of a difference right here. But this hilt should be, yeah, a little bit longer than his hands. And I've got it at a bit of an angle. Let me clear some of this out so we can see it better. Want to keep it nice and even across here so that top line is a little bit high. Let's go right about there. And I think that's about as far as it's actually going to come out past his hands. So I can get rid of most of the rest of this line. And it comes to a point at the end down here. So we'll just bring it together. And then I have two. That should have 3 rings on it. One right here where his hand is. So we will enhance that right there. And then another one right about here. And I think this actually, it tapers a little bit more, so I might want to adjust that. So let's make this a nice, smooth transition from that point down to here. And we'll add one more ring right here. So we're going to get the sword in, we're going to do the hands, and then we'll work on the character's face. And I think I'm going to go ahead and stream until I get this character completely done this time. Okay. So, let's see. This is where his hand is coming in on there. And there's essentially his knuckles going across there. Just trying to make sure I keep everything looking about right here. Now the character has bracers on his wrists. We're going to add those in once I make sure this doesn't look completely weird. Actually keep this a little bit thinner and bring it together right there. So his elbows are actually looking a little bit extended. And so we'll kind of work this together just a bit more here. The character is like ridiculously massive as far as muscles go, especially for his size. Okay. We'll flare this out a bit more here. And as I mentioned, I'm going to come back and ink this later, or do digital inks on it anyway. Everything is digital on the creation of this book, but so I don't really need to worry about too much about cleaning stuff up. I'm just doing that so I make sure I see what's going on here, and so you can see what's going on here. All right, zoom out a little bit more here. And really that arm is just too long. That's what's going on there. We're going to make another little adjustment. So I'm going to select his shoulder here. And his arm. And I'm actually only going to take him to the elbow right there. We'll take all of that. I'm going to make a little transform here. Put that right over there. We're going to rotate it up a little bit higher so he's really cranking that arm. And we might slide it out just a few pixels. That should be good. And that should, let's see, his elbow should probably be shorter, like to about right there. Let's try that, see if that looks a little bit better. All right. I think that is a good bit better. And we'll go ahead and crank this in so it's actually kind of meeting the bicep a little bit more. And this rear muscle of the arm might dig out just a bit more as well. And we could probably bring that bicep line down, make that a good bit thicker there. All right. And this would be like where the wrist bones are. Might even taper in a little bit. Oh, the dog has come down to visit. Let's see. So I think I want to keep that like so. Now, all right, we're looking okay. Time to start adding the rest of the blade in. And I do see one slight problem. I seem to have slightly tweaked the angle of the blade. So we're going to go ahead and just take this, because this is my center line. I'm going to go ahead and rotate it just a little bit so that it looks a little bit more straight. And maybe actually drop it down a couple pixels. That should do it. Yeah, it looks reasonable to me. It might actually still be a little bit high. What just happened? Okay. Oops. There we go. Now it feels about right. Okay. Now, let me jump over to the reference page. And this original drawing of the sword is one of the better ones than what's in my reference sheet. So I'm going to come back over here. And we're going to have the big croissant of his cross piece arcing right about like so. And I can just go right ahead and draw through everything since we are keeping it sketchy right now. Yeah, it's right about there. Sometimes it's really handy to just go ahead and draw right through the character and maintain the general shape of the things that we want to do. The center should be right about here. And it's going to flare out like so. And it comes right down here and curves into the croissant. Okay. Or crescent. But I don't know. I kind of think of this thing as like to me it just feels kind of like a croissant from Jack in the Box. Okay. I'm just taking out all that stuff that is hidden behind the arm since we don't really need it. I don't have to draw at all. And we've got a ridge that comes across right here. Got another one right here. And it's going to be curving around like so. And one last one right about here. And let's see, these guys don't really come to a point so much as just a rounded tip. All right, and then the blade comes out from there. Now this is kind of the tricky part doing it with this. Let's take it to about right there. Take this one to about here. And we have that point at the end of the blade, which we'll just ease that in there. And then the blade itself also has a blood groove in it, running right down the center. I'll just deepen that up a bit. And here in this thick part of the cross, well, it's not the cross piece. This is kind of like a blade holder in a sense. It helps to hold the whole assembly together. This is inset in a rectangle shape right here. And it actually flares out again where it's hidden by his hands and his arm. And then I've got symbols that are in there. Now this is really small, so we're not really going to put those symbols in there exactly. I'm just going to suggest them. And again, I'm using this sketchy pencil brush setting, so when I come back and ink these in later, I'll be using a 100% opaque brush with 100% flow, so it's going to go really smooth, and those will be a little cleaner. But again, they are really small, so they will not be highly detailed. All right, so that's in there. Now it's time to put his bracers on. Let me scroll this over a little bit. So now you can see his bracers. In the original drawing, I made the rivets on his bracers kind of pointy, but they are intended to be more round. So we just pick how far back we want these to go, put the trim for the end pieces on it, and we clear those out. And smooth the line so it's a little bit thicker than his actual forearm would be, giving the impression that it actually has some, that the armor has some thickness to it and that it isn't just skin tight. And we'll start putting these rivets on. Now they are nice and rounded, and we'll go in a pattern of one big one and then two little ones. Two little ones over here, and you might even see the curve of another big one past the edge of the form. All right, so that's one bracer. Now he's got one on the other hand, which Let's see, these are fingers here. Actually, that should probably be tighter, like right there. And then kind of clean that up. So you should probably see at least a little bit of this bracer right here. And let's see, we'll go ahead and put some of that curved one right there. And clean this out. Alright, I think that does it for his armor and sword and everything. Let's make sure. So I've got his boots, got his underwear, his belt, bracers, sword is in place. Somebody must be walking down the street. My dog is up there barking like crazy. Alright, so now time to get to the hard part. We gotta do the face. So, starting here, I've got a little bit of curve into his eye line. His nose should probably be right about here. And then his mouth should be right about here. Actually, probably ought to be more like if it was slightly open, because he is kind of looking down while he swings his sword up over his head. So let's see. Ear line, we'll say, would be right about there. The top of his ears might be a little bit higher than the eye line, like this. And he has pointy ears that kind of crank out at the top. And then they flare out into rounded bottoms as they come back to the jawline. So, as a gnome, I'm not sure if all gnomes have pointy ears, but I kind of liked having some pointy ears that aren't quite as big and pointy as my elves' ears. But a lot of my non-human races in this coloring book get some variation of pointy ears. Because it's different, I guess. It's just a thing that I do. Let's see. So now let's go ahead and shape in his eyebrows. He should be definitely arcing his eyebrows, and any brow ridge muscles should be kind of flexed. And his cheekbones running down just like there. Alright. Level that out a bit. So I do have some pretty hefty, thick lines on here at the moment, which gives me a lot of space where I have to end up kind of having to clean out some of the stuff that's going on there, like thin out certain lines and bring other things back together. So now my gnome has a fairly big nose, but he's got this big round nose, and then even his nostrils are kind of big, but you know, it's not as big as some of the characters, but it is bigger than like typical human nose. All right, bring this together. And let's see. This might actually be flaring out nice and dark. And we might want to bring his mouth to something of a point right here under his nose. And not so much that he's smiling, but he'll have like an open mouth, maybe even have his teeth bared there as he does this. And let's see. I think that's pretty decent. Might want to point his chin just a bit more, or make it a little bit more prominent than that. Just a little tiny bit longer. Maybe cut that back a little bit there. And now we really do need to give him some eyes. Now in this particular pose, let's see what we can do here. I'm going to go ahead and fill them in black for now. Just kind of get them in there. And maybe clear out the eyes just a bit. Okay. And he's got big bushy eyebrows. I'm going to shape those in first. Just about like so. And then give it some of that shaggy pattern. And then just kind of clear it out. Okay, we can get rid of the center line scribbles. Alrighty. Now he's got these sideburns that are coming from his hair. They actually come all the way down to his chin. And then he's got like a goatee that stretches back to about here. So I'm going to go ahead. We'll start with the goatee here. And it's coming together right here. It's not very long before it gets braided up. Then it flares out. And thinking about how he's moving, I'm actually going to stretch his goatee like this, like along that line that I just sketched. So let's tweak this a little bit. This will be his wrap, and then that little bit that was flared out, then another wrap, and then the loose bit at the end of his goatee, just right over here. Now this runs right up to his lip and then kind of drops out like so. And I can go ahead and get rid of this chin line. I can get rid of that, clean this out some. And we can just refine this tuft of hair a little bit more. If I haven't mentioned it yet, this gnome is an evil gnome. He's not one of the good guys. So the goal is to make him look a little bit evil, in addition to making him this extremely muscular little murder baby, which is a term that one of the artists that I talked to in one of my Discord servers. That's kind of the phrase that he used. It was like a little murder baby, and I like that. It's funny. All right, now these are actually like wraps, little leather wraps. I'm only gonna put one line through them in this particular drawing. And maybe do that. It's just enough to suggest that this is his goatee and that it's hair. Now we gotta do his hairline up here. I think this is about where I want it to be. So it does arc back. And comes down there. And he's got this sort of like crew flat top thing going on. So I'm gonna shape that in real quick. And we'll get rid of the headline that was in there. And if I wanted to leave it really simple, I could probably get away with leaving it that way. But I do like to put some of these hair details in there. I don't like to just draw hair as like a block. But I will start that way. All right. And as I said, he does have these sideburns that are growing out. And I'm going to draw like a little line for that. And yeah, it should flare out right about there. Oops. Yeah, right about like that. Get rid of that one. I'm going to open that up a little bit. So it's just stacking one thing on top of another. That's why I start, with the basic body, add some muscles, add the stuff over the top of that, put the hair on top of everything else. And I do kind of like to save the faces for last because they tend to be fairly intricate, and it really messes things up when you do a face and the face is really good, but your body's all messed up. And then if you change the way the head goes, then your face no longer fits with the head. Okay. Oh, one last detail we got to add here to the face, and that is his paint lines. So these are kind of like what do you call it? Like the war paint in Braveheart or any other kind of war paint, really. But I went with like two fingers across the top of the eye there. They actually kind of have a gap right there above the eye on the upper eyelid, and then it's like three fingers coming down his cheek. Just like that. And again, that's one of those little details that shows up a little bit better when I do the ink lines, because then it's just a one clean, easy flowing line. Where here it gets a little bit lost because of the gray tones. And then this one comes down, it actually curves down towards his mouth. Let's bring it like right there and clear out that fold. Alright, and I can deepen in some of these muscle forms a little bit. So we are almost done. I don't even have to really worry too much about the hands here because they are busy up here on the sword. So as long as they look like they are hand shaped in general, that should be sufficient. But of course, now there is a little bit of an issue right here with the thickness of the hand. So let me kind of clear this out. And I'm going to take this back in right here and bring the hilt of the sword. It's only like a little tiny bit of a detail right there, but that should help to sell the impression that his hand is there. Also, I don't like that ring in particular. It's not quite as curved as I want it to be. Okay. So I can make little adjustments like this. All right. Then, of course, I think I want to keep a little bit more of roughness up here for the knuckles. And maybe bring in just a little bit more of like the underside of that finger bone right there. That's actually the pinky right here. So you got the bone in the palm of the hand there. And then the knuckles up there. I think that should be sufficient, especially when you're zoomed out. And this is like when you're looking at this at regular size, that should be plenty to suggest that he's got a hand. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and deepen in the what do you call it? The shape of his muscles. So right here we're dealing with the bicep and the shoulder here. I think that's called the triceps, but I am not all that great with anatomy or with names of pretty much anything. Uh, Today during our club meeting, I was talking about. Oh, here I go again. Yeah, I just did it again, didn't I? Yeah, that's amazing. I can't remember the artist's name again. But there is an artist, and Larry Elmore. Okay, so Larry Elmore is one of my favorite artists, but for some reason, I can never remember his name. I don't know what's up with that. It's like I always draw a blank. But anyway, earlier today in my club meeting, I was talking about Larry Elmore and Clyde Caldwell and a lot of the other Dungeons and Dragons artists. And then, I mean, I know I said the name, and then, like, not a minute later, I couldn't remember his name. When I went to mention him again, I actually had to go look him up on Facebook, where I'm following him on Facebook, and I had to find a post with his name on it so I could remember what his name is. It's crazy. But that's just me. It's like I've been having trouble remembering names and all kinds of stuff lately. All right. Now let's go ahead and right. I'm gonna keep some of these muscle ridges in his chest. In fact, I might even, yeah, we'll put like a bit of a wrinkle there. Excuse me. And over here, I'm gonna let that overlap just a bit. Maybe put another one here. Oh, here we go. This is what I want to do. So I want to emphasize that this gnome is like ridiculously muscular and keep the hard forms and separations here so that he does so that all that is like well conveyed. It's like he doesn't even work out, he just eats mussels for breakfast. That's what it is. Or maybe he just packs them on. Alright, and I think I'm showing too much of this arm over here coming around right there. Flare that out. Tuck that in. Clean out some of this scribblage over here. Okay. Go down here and work some more. And of course, being that this is a coloring book, I've said this in other streams as I've been going along, I'm not putting a lot of shadowing and stuff into the drawing because I want to leave the drawing as open as I can for the people that want to color it. So, you know, the more that I leave it open, the more opportunity the coloring person has to change things up, decide where the lighting's coming from. So I try to only really use my lines anywhere that I feel like it really needs to be emphasized that there is like a form change or something that's on top of something else. And yeah, I don't like this line at all. I think maybe like this. Okay, and some of this is actually getting a little bit confusing because I had that super smooth line right there for his hair instead of leaving it a little chunky or making it chunky right there. So it was reading as the edge of the arm uh, rather than as like the outline of his head. Okay, and we will put this line in. That's for his abs. that back a little bit. One more here, and let's maintain some separation right here. Maybe even curve this in. And carry that to there. Okay, and then as far as the hair, I can actually lengthen that just a little bit. And maybe bring one more in here. Maybe two. There we go. So I think that is going to do it for the gnome. And I'm pretty happy with him. Oh, let me turn the wizard back on. So here's why I turned the wizard off for this session. Is because he's literally right here behind the sword, and I didn't want to get caught up in that interaction. Now, when I get to the point that I'm ready to finish this page completely, I'm gonna have to do some serious redesigning or rearranging, because the initial drawing for the gnome was like, well, I could say like from this point to that point. He was about half the size that I've drawn him now, and a lot of these characters are about to get a lot bigger than what I've got them scribbled in right now because of that. It's kind of a perspective and height thing. But next up, we're going to do the Goblin Wizard, or no, the Goblin Barbarian. So I have a Goblin Barbarian too, and I will go ahead and pull him up and give you a preview of what we're going to work on in my next live stream. And go 2 up. There we go. So now I've got my Goblin Barbarian open over here. Bunch of different poses, and of course this first one, let me zoom in up here, and that's going to be a little too big. So this first drawing was actually the first initial drawing that I did of this character, of the Goblin Barbarian. And so when I did the drawing, I didn't really even know that I was going to do a coloring book. It was just a character I was drawing at the time. And so then I had to kind of go through and figure out like how I drew him, like how tall he should be or conform him. And so going through the book, I've been drawing him and of course refining him as I go, figuring out all of his different armor pieces, how they look, how he looks in different perspectives, different angles, rotations, all that stuff. And of course, things do tend to change a little bit as I go. But you know what? I'm not too tired yet. I do have to get to bed soon, but I'm going to go ahead and get him started. So let's, first of all, let me get my heads here. All right, this little thing here is 4 heads tall, and it's 4 heads tall. Oops, I'm on the wrong layer. See that? Okay. So it's 4 heads tall is basically the height of the Gnome Barbarian. Now, I'm going to put this back over here, or I'm going to leave it like right here. But I'm going to turn it off anyway after I copy it again. So turn it off. Now, I'm going to bring it a little further forward, and I'm going to make it slightly bigger. Not a lot, just a little bit, because this next character that we're going to do, he's the Goblin Barbarian. He's only 3 heads tall, not 4. So I'm going to take off this top one. And now we've got a character who's going to be a little bit shorter, but also standing a little bit closer in space. I'm going to move him over to about here. think that's where I want to put him. And I actually don't need this measurement over here anymore, so I can take most of that out so it doesn't get confusing. There we go. Alright, so now for my Goblin Barbarian, first of all, I gotta do some layer management stuff here. Let me turn this down to 35%. Merge that down. Okay. Now we're going to get zoomed in. The Goblin Barbarian, I should be able to fit completely in here when I'm at 100% and be able to see what I'm doing. So I'm thinking about, I know that I wanted to have him swinging his axe, and a lot of times he's got his axe in his right hand, if it's not in both hands. So let me think about how he would look. And we're going to go ahead and start with a sketch. Now, if you watched the last one, I had a little bit of trouble cramming my, cramming the Gnome Barbarian in at 4 heads. So, you'll know that it's going to be a little bit tricky for me to cram this whole character in as 3 heads tall. But we will get it done. Alright. So, let's go ahead and put him together, looking halfway right. I'm thinking, okay, so his right hand's on the side that's facing away from us. And he's going to be swinging the axe. I'm thinking that I want his arm to be something like this. And his hand would be like right here, coming back to the arm. Thumb would be about there. And then that would put the other arm over here, like if he's got both arms on this axe. Let's see, and his axe curves. So it would be curving about like so. So we can start with the hand over here. And we'd know that his hand would be like right here. It would come back to an arm, elbow, back to there. Okay. And then maybe he would be looking over this way. And his head is huge in comparison to his body because he's only 3 heads tall. Where normal human people, are usually around 6, and if they're heroic humans, they go as high as like 9. So he's going to look a little funky. And I don't need that big of an eraser right this moment. Okay. And let's see. And so another thing to keep in mind is that even though he is tiny, his hands should be pretty big. Because the hands I want to be proportionate, like if he was a human, where your hands are like all the way open, about as big as your face. You want to keep his hands nice and big like that, which makes it look even weirder. And of course, the axe is going to be back behind his head, so you're not even going to see all that right there. But you would see his arm here, elbow here, and then, of course, his legs. Let's see if he's going to be swinging it that way. Thinking, yeah, this leg ought to be coming kind of forward. And I'm going to go ahead and just take it. I'm going to keep it. Oh, excuse me. Uh, Sort of like in proportion with the rest of the body I've got right now. Then I'm going to shrink the body, just like I ended up doing with the um, the Gnome Barbarian. All right, so I think that's going to be about it, and then he would have his abdomen coming in right here. Okay, so he's not bad. He's pretty close to where we want to be. I'm only slightly off, but that is a huge head. All right, so what I'm going to do now is um I'm going to go ahead and take him from the lower part of his body, basically from his pelvis down to his feet. And I'm going to just shrink that whole area. Oops. All right. But I'm going to cut a section out of this selection. Oh, wait. All right. Because I don't want to actually adjust the measurement lines just yet. So I'm taking this piece out to make sure they stays right there where I want it to be. And I'll go ahead and cut that piece out too right there. All right, now I can adjust this. And so parts of it are going to go, but parts of it are going to stay right there. So I'm going to shorten that up to about right there. And then I'm going to also add in the abdomen right up to the bottom of the ribs. And this time, that's going to be what I keep. So I'm just shortening the character up to get him right there where I need him. Now I am perfectly okay with this character being like very top heavy, like his upper torso might be the biggest part of him. So let's see. We're going to call this the center line of the character, which of course his ribs are coming out right there. And then here down to the groin, square that off a little bit. And we're pretty much good to go. Now this will be his forearm, then his upper arm, and his shoulder. And this would be actually part of his back right here, where that's kind of wrapping around. And I might need to taper him in just a bit more back there, but I like the general look that's got going on. We're going to go ahead and put, maybe not that high. This will be like his chest line. And his chest should be coming into about there. Might need to fluff it out right there a little bit. And over here, this shoulder would be right about there. Bicep, forearm coming in. Elbow, back of the arm. And I can just clear out all of this so it's easier to read for the next session. All right, so now I've got him into the size that I want him. I don't really need the measurements anymore. I just need to keep them for a little bit. And let's see. Now what we need to do is, let's see, this is the axe. So with both hands on the axe, there's a little bit of an overhang on it. And it flares out at the end of its curve. So let's keep it thick right there and flare it out just like this. And I'm going to go ahead and draw right through his head while I curve this axe to about right here. So this is where I would have the head of the axe at, or at least the I think, I don't know, the shaft or whatever that attaches to the stick. Then the blade of the axe is coming off right here. And it curves about like that. Okay. Now, obviously, you're not going to see any of the axe that's right here behind his head, but you would see, he's going to have hair, so you may or may not even see, I think you'll see some of this axe back there. All right. And then his face would be, put his center line right about here. His eyes, his nose, and his mouth. And now he's got really big, like a really big brow ridge that comes like all the way up to here. And then his nose is kind of like it. It only comes out a little bit, and then it comes out a lot, like for the centerpiece of it. And this is going to be a little bit difficult to put in here with, because what I just did looks crooked and broken. Let's see, so bring this together, and then it kind of comes way out here. Sometimes you have to break it up into shapes to get it all figured out. And let's see. Yes, this is more pointy and curvy. Okay. Now, normally I do the face like very last, but I figured since we're going at it, we'll go ahead and keep on doing it right here. Now, he also has really big cheekbones. So we'll go to there, and I will go ahead and tuck his eye. I'm gonna have where his eyebrows or the forms of his eyes, uh, the meat in there, whatever, actually pretty much covers his eye as it wraps around right there. And then he does also have big, ugly eyebrows. And yes, this is another evil character or a bad guy. I don't know. I mean, I've seen stories where people do things where the goblins are good or cute or whatever, and some of them are cool. But this goblin is definitely not good or cute. Alrighty. And let's see, this might even need to flare around like so. And just turning it from simple centerline stuff into a little bit more form driven shapes here. Get it a little bit more here, and I've given him, I didn't really maintain that, but I did initially give him like a big V in his forehead, it looks like. Now he does have a scar. So this scar follows this eye like this, and then it comes up through his eyebrow right there. And my eraser's too big to clean that out. There we go. No other scars. In fact, now that I'm looking at these other drawings, I think I forgot to carry that scar throughout the whole book. I mean, it's on there under his eye, but not above it. So you know what? We'll leave it out. That's one of those little changes. When I get done with this book, I'm going to probably go through and do a new, like a full-on character sheet for each of these guys. Um, Based on all the little things that I changed, so I have like one final, um, what do you call it? Like a final character sheet for each of them. Because I feel like I might do more stuff with them. None of these characters get killed in this book. That's one thing I didn't put any blood in it. Um, Scary as they might be, or evil looking as they might be, nobody actually gets killed, and nobody really bleeds. I wanted to make this as what do you call it? Uh, well, really as friendly as possible while still maintaining an actual conflict and combat. Okay, ears. My goblin has gigantic ears, and they actually come together a little bit higher than they would on any other creature. And they just kind of flare right out there. And yeah, they actually go just a little bit above his head. And then they drop down, and they are some big, ugly ears. All right. And of course, we're going to see his ear behind this arm and over the top of the axe because the axe is going behind his head. But it does look a little funky right now. And we'll have to figure out how to make that look not funky later on. And I'm actually going pretty good here. I really don't even want to stop streaming. It's one of those things where once I get started on something, I just kind of want to keep on going at it. And so I'll tell you what, we're going to go ahead and do this for another 25 minutes. But I'm going to go ahead and take a moment to take a quick break, and then we'll go for the rest of this until like 5 o'clock or maybe just a little bit after that. So I will be right back. Okay, I am back. I'm gonna turn my webcam off. Oh, I'll turn that off too. There we go. So had to take a quick bio break there. I'm back. We're gonna go ahead and get this Goblin Barbarian drawn up. And I don't know. We'll see just how far we go tonight. I'm thinking 5 o'clock. Whoops. I just screwed it up. Not really. Okay. But yeah, I'm thinking about 5 o'clock or so, which is another 20 minutes. But I don't know. I'd kind of like to just go until I get this whole page done. We got a lot of characters to go. First thing I'm going to do, though, before I get started, you can't see this on the screen. I am changing the name of this layer so that I know what it is without having to turn it off to find out. There we go. All right. So we've got the Goblin Barbarian laid out. Now he is not like super huge and buff like the Gnome Barbarian, but he also has a little bit of a flat top. So we're gonna go ahead and put that on him. Now he's got a bit more of a receding hairline here. I like his hair to come way back, and then it does just kind of poke forward right there at the top of his ear. That goes there, but it's a big spiky haircut. So I'm bringing it together here. Bring this. I think. How does this go? That's kind of a strange looking form to have to draw. I've done it a couple of different ways, it looks like. So one of the things that kind of bugs me about this book is, like I said, literally, I've gotten better at drawing these characters as I've gone along, become like more familiar with them, made little changes to them. And so there's a little bit of a difference between like the beginning of the book and where we're at right now. It's not probably like a horrible thing, but it bugs me. And I, at the same time, though, I don't really want to go through and redo the whole book because then you also get that. I have a concern that if I do that, then I'll get even better at drawing these characters by the time I'm done and have to redo the book again. And that's how you end up in like a endless revision cycle on something, constantly changing it up, fixing it. Um, I'm not sure that I like the way I'm going with this hair. I'm gonna go ahead and cut it down like that. I think that's gonna look better. And of course, it's not gonna be a smooth line anyway, but that's how I'm starting it. And I'm gonna take this and do it kind of like a woodcut. Little chunks taken out of it. And I'll just throw some scribbles in there. This is one of those little things where I'll refine it more when I get to the inking stage. And let's see, and we'll just leave this black. And some of it'll be longer, and some of it'll be shorter. Maybe I'll even carry that back in and take a chunk out of it right there. That'll do for me. All right, now this goblin has little pupils. And then his eyes are like all bloodshot. And this is like I'll be able to see that when I come back to ink it probably. I'll have to do that in with some thin lines. I can increase the contrast right here. And maybe a little bit over there. And let's see, I'm just checking how I've drawn him. I've actually given him a bit of a hooked nose. So the tip of his nose is actually hooking downward a little bit. We'll go ahead and keep that. Okay, and I might just clean that out of there. And let's see. Now, as far as his mouth goes, I'm not even going to bother putting his mouth in because I think I'm about to cover it with his arm and his armor. So, let's go ahead and move over to, let's see. I'm going to go with that. If I zoom into 100%, that's a bit big. I'm gauging something here. Right, that had a lot of foreshortening. So for the most part, I've made him, he's got kind of like, oh, how do I want to describe this? His forearms, they're solid, but they're kind of skinny, and then they just blow up into these muscles at the back. It's kind of like a big drumstick, like a really, like a weird looking drumstick though. And then, all right, I'm trying to look around and see. I think I've given him, I've made him generally a little bit more muscular than what I initially had him as I've gone through the book. So let's see, I'm going to go ahead and thicken this up and bring it in like so. And this is his upper arm. I think that's, again, not great with the muscles, but I think it's biceps and deltoids. Biceps being on the front, deltoids being on the back, and then triceps up at the top, but I could be wrong. And that'll be that shoulder muscle there. Time to start throwing on his armor plates. So he's got a shoulder, sort of a shoulder pad that comes down his arm to about here in his bicep area. But it's three separate pieces. So first of all, we've got this shoulder pad, or the actual shoulder cover part. And we'll bring it down about like so. Probably won't actually see all that because of the other pieces coming through. And it's technically in front of his face. So, but I'll keep it behind his nose. We'll see how this works out. This might be like a really intense pose to have tried to pull off with such a piece of armor on. Okay. Then the second piece is tucked into that, but it would be rolling out right about here and probably wouldn't wrap all the way around. But it would actually affect what you're going to see of that trim on the bottom side. And maybe here as well. So now I got to clear this out. Okay. And then there's one more piece which drops out. Now technically it's still way up there, but I'm on my button again. Here we go. What did I? Oh, okay. So I think I'm actually cramming these in shorter than what they need to be. So let me go ahead and clean this out now. Because I want the second piece to be more like right here. Yeah, that's looking better. And it does wrap around into there, so that's fine. Let's see, its extremeness would be like over here. So we'll clean this up a little bit. And then this is gonna be, I think I want to loosen it back here. So it's not actually coming all the way back around on the back side of his arm. Maybe terminate it like right about there. But then have this nice smooth arc of it on the outside. And the final piece, once I get over here, is, where did it go? Okay, so this final piece is gonna, it wraps down and comes across like so. We'll go ahead and put it right here. And it's gonna do the same thing, just kind of terminate right there. Oh, I did draw it where on the back there. So yeah, it all comes together on the back of his arm. Oh, I don't like that. Let me, yeah. And let's see, how do I want to handle this right here? I'm going to go ahead and just taper it right here, even though it would probably be further around his arm where it does that. Maintain that one. Maybe keep it fatter back there. And I don't know, I don't really like this either. I'm going to make this fatter. That should do. And I can get rid of this part of the cheek right here, because that is now behind the armor. And I could even bring that trim in like that. Alright. And then this is that piece of armor I was trying to draw there. Okay, so then his elbow would be technically coming in like right here. And I don't have any other armor on his arm. So this is all just gonna be muscles. I'm gonna go ahead and put sort of a muscle shadow right here. This big one right here that's coming back. This one and this one. I'm gonna get rid of that whole line right there. Get rid of this. We'll maintain basically the nubs, the rounded nubs of his elbow and bones right here. I might include a little bit of a line here and thicken up the forearm right there. And this might even kind of tuck in like that. And I can boost out the wrist bones. I can do that on both sides even. Alright, now that gives me room to do his hand, and his knuckles would be like right here, a little bit forward, slightly more back, and slightly more back. Then the meat of his hand would probably be pudged out right here and a little bit down here. Maybe it should tuck in kind of tight on that side of the shoot, on that side of the hand. And of course, at this point, all we have is that little tiny tangent of the ear, so I'm just going to remove that, because at this point it's no longer important, and we can actually smooth out that line for the wrist. Just a bit there. I can even maybe just take that out and make this, it's like a suggestion of like a split and wrapped muscle right there, where it's kind of coming this way and kind of going around at the other side of the arm. So I could maybe carry this in and stretch that up front just a touch more, like so. Now we're going to the other arm on the back side. Oh, let me clean out some more of this. Don't want those to be perfectly circular either. And I can throw in maybe some lines for his finger bones. Now for the other arm, I'm going to boost that bicep a bit and the shoulder. That arm does not have an armor shoulder pad like this arm does. But does it have anything is going to be the question. And the answer is no. All I put over there were nasty veins bulging out of his muscles. So here's this. And of course that hand is back behind his head, so you won't see it at all. This pinky finger would be wrapping around here and then curving. So I can kind of carry that. Like, yeah, let's do this. Maybe try to keep just a little bit of that knuckle line in there. Okay. Bicep would be like right back here, and that's cutting in like so. Put in some muscle shape here. And I think that'll do it for that arm. Now for his chest. So he's got an armor breastplate, basically. Let's find one of these poses. Here we go. It's this strange shaped breastplate that basically comes around, let's see, yeah, about right back here. So it would be all the way over there. It's going to flare down to about where his groin is. And then at the top, like you can still see his nipples, the way it flares out. But on that side, it's going to be covered. And so I'm actually bringing this in a little too high. Let's see, how does this work? Oh, I brought it too far back too. So it really ought to be more like that. So you probably... Yeah, okay. Let's see how we can do this. It's an interesting little form. Let's go ahead and cut it into right here. And it probably ought to not go as far as I've been taking it. It is not the best armor, that's for sure. But like most of my bad guys in this, their armor is very piecemeal. It's like they took it off of dead adventurers. So this could easily be something that some adventurer was wearing. like a bargain bin adventurer who came to a unpleasant end, and now his stuff is being worn by this goblin. Alright, so this is the big goofy chest plate. And it has some round, like a rolled edge to it. I generally just call it trim, but it's like a rolled edge. And we're not going to show the other side here. I'm going to go ahead and just have that roll right to the edge. And that's where it's looking funky, isn't it? It's like it goes way far on that side and not so much on this side. So let's bring it to, like, say, right here. And we'll cut this down. And why is it so weird? I think it's too high to begin with. It ought to be coming to about here. Maybe it ought to be like right here. Okay. And let's see. I think also another thing is that I want to have this thing have a bit of a form to it. Where it kind of billows out here in the center. But for some reason, this is it's just looking ridiculous. Like it's not coming together the way I want it to. Let's try to do it again. Okay, now it looks a little bit better. Maybe it'll have a little bit of a flow to it here. Where it comes further back at the top and angles forward just a bit. And I will put some of that back in, but I'm not going to do the whole all the way to the top and bottom with that line, because that didn't help anything at all. Alright. Now, this armor plate has leather straps that come off of it. So, these leather straps are, there's one here. And we want to maintain some thickness to this strap. And also put just a touch of texture into it to give it some texture. Alright, I'm just going to fill that in with black at the moment, and maybe touch in there with that. And then the other straps come out under his chest. Yeah, sometimes, well, in the one I wrapped them, but I think they literally just kind of come around right here and try to make them about the same thickness. And maybe just kind of poke in some bits there. Next up, we've got, he's got sort of a little bit of chainmail. He's got a loincloth, and he's got some big coins that he wears, kind of like a belt. And let's see how else I've done this. Are they only on the one side? It looks that way. Yeah, okay. So his 3 coins or whatever are only over here on the opposite side. But one of them is right here. The next one is kind of like right here. And it's essentially a coin with like a rivet or just a big form on it. So let's do that. I think they're all essentially the same. But that's 2 coins. The third one will be around his body where you can't quite see it. I'm going to go ahead and draw this chainmail piece as like it's cloth right there. I'll come back and put rings to it or just the circles. It's nothing too complicated. He's got a loincloth that is kind of wrapped around his waist. So that is, yeah, it comes up here about like so. And then it's wrapped. And it drops down. And let's see, so he's kind of stepping forward here. I'm going to have it sort of follow him, and then the length of it ends right about where his calf is. So over here, it's just kind of dropping down with him, and then maybe drifting forward. And it comes together right there. But I'll put some wrinkles in it. And we'll clear out some of this. Nothing too complicated here, just some little wrinkles. To give it some shape and form. Now it's also on, excuse me, it's also on the back side of his body, but it's actually shorter back there. And then right here, instead of seeing like his, basically his butt area, he has some chain here too. And so I'm going to go ahead and draw this out. Again, like that tattered cloth that I did over there. Same thing here. And he has this wrap just a little bit above his knee. It's an armband, kind of like a Conan type armband, or I'm not sure who else worn those in fantasy. Pretty much everybody. My Gnome Barbarian has one on his arm. This guy has one on his leg. And let's see, so then the chains, I'm going to keep these circles right around the same size. So it's not so much chain as it is like ring. And I kind of want to alternate them so that they don't all line up perfectly. Oops. I made some of them a little bit smaller. And then I can go through here and, because this is a solid form, I could just kind of clean some of this out so that you get an area where you can actually color without all the rings. And I can put just parts of them back in there right at the edge to kind of make it look like they're still there. Like maybe it's a light area where you don't see every ring. We'll do the same thing over here. I'll put one more right there. All right, and these rings, oh, they go under the loincloth. So there's that. And I could do the same here, just kind of break this up a little bit. And clean that out to smooth it a little bit more. Okay. I don't know if I actually like having this broken up right here. I might just put all the rings back in. It would probably look better on a bigger drawing. Or even a bigger area where you'll get more light and shadow and have more rings to suggest the forms. Now I'm going to bubble his leg out just a little bit right there. Like this band is actually a little tight, where it could even be cutting off the circulation, which would be a bad choice. Well, a bad choice for him anyway. That would put a quick end to his adventuring career. Okay, and then I'm going to alter this just a bit. Try to show more of the form of the leg right there. And let's see here. What else do we got to do? On this leg, he has no boot, no armor. So we go straight into kneecap. And then straight down to the foot. Now he has big, well, sort of big calves. Put his ankles in there. And we'll carry his foot down just like so into basically his toes. Now he has 5 toes just like normal people. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I can make this one a little bit bigger Move this one over a little bit. Maybe expand that one just a touch. And that one, and yeah, there we go. That's good. Now his toes have just one joint to them. So that's literally right there. And then it puffs out with this big, ridiculous nail. Which actually gets carved up that way into the toe. All right. Then we'll go to the next toe. Same general design. Nail here. And just repeat this over and over again till we get through the whole foot. Now these toes are starting to go at a little bit of an angle, so we'll show a little bit more of the side of that toe and nail. All right, now we can just kind of make sure the toes all kind of come together here. Make sure they all have some form to them so it's not just like a little tiny ridge of a line. Okay. And I want a bit of a line right here for just to suggest the what do you call it? The bones in his feet. Now where your ankles come together, I mean this is like your leg bone and your ankle bone, and it's kind of like hands as far as you have basically what do you call it, carpals. But in your foot, I believe they're called tarsals. So you can have some kind of rounded shadows here for um, like bones coming together. I think that's too many of them. I'll just go with one actually, and maybe a little bit of another one right here where that bone is. Then I'm going to carry the shin bone up like that and put a little bit of line over here for that muscle. All right, now the other leg has like a kind of like an armor bracer on it. But let's go ahead and bring his foot out. Let's see what I was doing here. Let's cut that ankle right, or that. Yeah, that's not what I meant. Okay. I'm thickening his leg up just a bit because I didn't like the way that I angled it there. I'm giving him some heel to his foot, which I think I want to, yeah, keep that more bulky. I'm going to arc this downward like so. And here you're going to see his big toe, which I'm going to go ahead and put in like that. Give him some arch in his foot. And then the big toe nail. let's see. So I want to keep that fairly level here and thick looking, so it doesn't look like his toes would just break off real easy. And we're going to go with putting his, I don't know, ankle bracer. That's what it's going to be. It's an ankle bracer. Not to be confused with an ankle bracelet, which they give you once you go to prison, far in the future of, well, not in prison. When you go, when you're on, what is that, probation? Yeah, that's the thing. All right. I think that I might have ended this a little early. I might want to have some thickness to, like yeah, a thickness or a width to it, so it is not like it's real tight on his leg. That should do. And now this thing actually has a spike on the front of it, where my gnome has his stuff with rivets. This armor has a spike, but on the sides, it also has spikes, but they're broken off. So another one would be like right here, but it is broken. It's like that rough, I think I could show it to you over here. Yeah. So I did it on this one. His other spikes are mostly broken, but that front one is not. Okay. And as far as this Goblin Barbarian goes, I believe we are done. Might need to just do a little something here with his leg. I could put a little bit of a line here. And maybe a little bit of one right here. That's all you really need. I think that's going to do it. And so now I've got my barbarian brothers, which hopefully they come from different mothers, because otherwise, holy crap, that's an ugly family. But yeah, that's gonna be it. Next session then, because I've gone ahead and gotten the goblin in. How many more bad guys do I have? I have a human barbarian, and I have a tiefling paladin, so that's two more bad guys. I think I'm gonna get through all the bad guys before I do the good guys. I mean, I already did the wizard. The wizard here, the human wizard, he's one of the good guys. But we're gonna finish doing all the bad guys, then we're gonna jump into the good guys. That's what we're gonna do. So next up is going to be my tiefling paladin, who is 6 heads tall. So just one last thing that I can do during this stream, I'm gonna pull up my 4 heads thing again. Remember, we used this a little bit ago, where I showed that that was the measurement I had for the Gnome Barbarian. Now the Goblin Barbarian is only 3 heads tall, and but I also stretched him out a little bit. That's why when we look at this, he's like 3.5. He's also further in front of that barbarian. My tiefling is way back there. I'm gonna leave this here and take a copy of it over here. So my tiefling paladin is actually 6 heads tall, not 4. So I'm double that up and merge it down. So now it's 1 layer. And since I have 8, I'm just going to go ahead and erase 2 of them. And now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 heads. And what I'm going to do here, I'm going to use my initial sketch as a guide. And I'm going to shrink this measurement down Oh, wait a second. I missed something right there. So there's just a little bit of something right in there. Now let's try this. Okay, it's still a little bit more. Alright. I do hate that when I got just that extra size on something that I don't need. So this was my Tiefling Paladin back here, holding that staff with the ball on the end of it. And it's actually like a giant mace. So I am bringing this down. That's the size of her head, more or less. And as far as where she's standing in this scene, she should not be on the same height as the gnome because her head is smaller than his. Her head's actually smaller than the wizard's. So her feet should probably be back there. If we look at, yeah, so that is the goblin wizard back there. His head's way smaller than this. So we'll put her, I'm going to put her right about there. And that's what I'm talking about, where I'm saying I'm going to have to I'm going to have to adjust this whole thing as I go along. Now I'm going to do another layer on top. I'm going to turn this down to 35% like I've done before. Merge that layer down, rename it. This is now my Tiefling Paladin. All right. And so when I take up in the next session, we're going to go ahead and draw the Tiefling Paladin in. And we'll see where else we go. I figure I probably will stream at some point tomorrow, but I'm not going to pick a time because it's my unscheduled weekend, and it's, I'll stream if I have time and I feel like it. Otherwise, I'm planning on being back on Monday morning, or not Monday morning, Monday afternoon from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern time. But I'm hoping that works out because this week I struggled to even stream at all, let alone do it on time, because of work. But you gotta do what pays the bills too, right? So take care. Thanks for joining me today. I do hope that what do I want to say here? I hope you've enjoyed the stream and the drawing that we've been doing here. If you did, please go ahead and follow the channel so that you get notified when I go live. And you can check me out on YouTube or on Patreon. Check out my shop on Etsy. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thanks for stopping by.